The house that spoke at midnight. The road to Hollowmere twisted through the woods like a scar, narrow and cracked, barely lit by the glow of Daniel Rourke's headlights. Mist clung to the treetops. It had been over 20 years since he'd seen those woods, yet they seemed to lean closer now, as if remembering him. The funeral had been small, just him, a priest, and a few neighbors who spoke in whispers. His mother had been reclusive in her final years. People said she had gone mad. Daniel never wanted to believe that. But when the lawyer handed him the house keys and said, "Your mother never left the place, not even once in the last decade," something in him froze. Now, driving past the decaying town sign that read, "Welcome to Hollowmere, Pop 412, Daniel felt the same dread he'd carried since he was 15, since the night his father vanished. The Rourke family home appeared out of the fog like a corpse rising from a grave, tall, crooked, and coated in gray moss. The porch leaned forward like it was listening. Daniel stepped out of the car, the air colder here than anywhere else in the valley. Even before he reached the door, he heard it. Faint murmurs, not from the wind, not from insects, but from within the house, like several voices whispering over one another in a low, rhythmic tone. He froze, key in hand. The whispers stopped. He pushed the key into the lock. The door opened with a long, tired sigh, as if the house itself had been holding its breath. The smell hit him first. Not just dust, but damp soil and something metallic underneath. The same smell from his childhood nightmares. He walked through the hallway, past the old portraits, his father's stern face, his mother's blank stare. Both seemed to follow him. In the living room, a single candle sat burned down to the base beside an old spirit board, the same one his mother had used in her seances. The planchette still rested on the letter H. Daniel chuckled nervously. "Still talking to ghosts, huh, Mum?" The laughter died when the planchette moved. It slid from H to E, then to L, then P. Help. Daniel stumbled backward, the air around him suddenly thick and heavy. A cold wind whispered through the house, though every window was shut. He turned to the hallway mirror, and for just a split second, he saw someone standing behind him, a tall figure in the dark. When he spun around, it was gone. That night, he slept in his old bedroom upstairs, though sleep was a generous word. The house groaned constantly, pipes rattled. Once or twice, he thought he heard footsteps just outside his door. He told himself it was just the house settling. Then, at 12:03 a.m., the clock downstairs began to tick louder than before, loud enough to shake the air, and beneath it, a voice. "Daniel, welcome home." The next morning, Daniel searched for answers. The old rooms were full of his mother's notes and journals. He found one on her nightstand, filled with cramped, desperate handwriting. November 5th, 1995. It speaks to me again. The same voice that took Thomas. It wants to come upstairs. November 9th. I sealed the basement door. I can still hear it. Sometimes it says my name like it's smiling. November 12th. It's not Thomas. Thomas is gone. Whatever's left of him belongs to the house. As he read, something thumped from below. Once. Twice. He dropped the notebook. The sound came again, this time louder, from the basement.
That door had been locked with heavy nails and chain, but now it stood slightly open. Daniel approached slowly. The hinges creaked when he touched them. The air spilling from the darkness below was freezing, colder than any winter night he'd ever known. A faint whisper slithered up the stairs. "You left me, son." He slammed the door shut and backed away. The house went still. But from that moment on, he could feel it watching him. Every hour the floorboards creaked following his steps. Sometimes when he looked at the walls, they seemed to breathe.
By the third night, the whispers had grown clearer. No longer random murmurs, but actual phrases, spoken in a dozen voices at once. "It's still hungry. She fed it. You are the last one." Daniel tore open the plaster in the hallway, desperate to find the source. What he found instead were dozens of small rolled papers stuffed between the walls. Each page covered in his mother's handwriting, some in ink, others in what looked horribly like dried blood. "It lives under the house, but it uses the walls to speak. It grows through the wood. I can hear its heartbeat in the floors. The mouth must be fed, or it will feed itself." As Daniel read, the house began to hum, a deep, resonant vibration that rattled the window panes. He looked down. The hardwood floor was moving, rippling gently like something alive was breathing underneath. He fled to the yard, gasping, and didn't stop running until he reached the edge of the forest. But when he looked back, the house was perfectly still, silent and patient, as if daring him to return. And he did, because there was nowhere else to go. That night the whispers turned into a chorus. They said his name in every tone imaginable, his mother's, his father's, even his own voice. He covered his ears, but the sound came from inside his skull. "Downstairs, Daniel. You have to see me." At 12:03 a.m., the clock struck again. This time, Daniel didn't resist. He walked to the basement door, trembling, and pulled away the boards. A gust of cold air struck him, carrying the smell of earth, rust, and rot. He descended, flashlight shaking in his grip. The basement was deeper than he remembered. The walls glistened with moisture, and in the center, where the concrete should have been, there was now a hole, wide and black, ringed with pulsing roots that glowed faintly red. The voice came from below. "Daniel, I waited for you." He aimed the flashlight downward and saw what looked like a face forming in the soil, half buried, human-like, yet impossibly stretched as if it were growing out of the ground itself. And then he saw his father's wedding ring pressed into the dirt where the mouth should have been. "Feed it, Daniel. Let it speak through you." The ground began to move. A hand, his father's hand, or something that had once been, broke through the soil, followed by a twisting mass of flesh and wood. Ribs fused with branches, skin merged with roots. Hundreds of tiny mouths opened across its surface, whispering in unison. "The house remembers its blood." The walls above began to tremble, the stairs warped, the ceiling wept dust and splinters. Daniel screamed and stumbled back as the thing reached for him, its many mouths opening wider. "One voice, Daniel. Yours will join ours." 2 weeks later, Hollowmere police entered the Rourke residence after reports of strange lights and sounds.
The entire interior of the house was covered in roots, thick, pulsing, and wet, as though the forest itself had begun reclaiming it from within. They found no trace of Daniel, only his voice recorder lying beside the open basement door. On the tape was nearly an hour of static, followed by his shaking voice. "It's not a haunting, it's a feeding ground. The house isn't alive, it's possessed by what's beneath it. It learns your voice, then it calls others using it. If anyone hears this, don't come here. Don't say its name out loud." A pause, then a whisper that wasn't his. "Daniel? Dad?" A long silence, then, "Welcome home." The tape ended in a burst of static. No one has entered the Rourke house since. Locals say if you drive past it at midnight, you can still hear a man's voice calling from the porch. If you listen closely, it sounds exactly like your own.